The chaos perspective, Taeyong corrected. That's why they wanted Junho to come. The now 9-year-old boy was currently spinning himself dizzy in a zero-gravity section of the elevator, laughing wildly while serious alien technicians watched, in confusion. The team included 30 humans from various backgrounds, not just scientists and engineers, but artists, musicians, children, even a few people chosen simply for their unconventional thinking. The archivists had been clear. They didn't want Earth's most logical minds. They wanted its most creative ones. When they boarded the Starlight Seeker, Ambassador Sunwoo greeted them personally. Over the months, he had become more comfortable with human expressions and customs. "We will reach the observation station at the edge of the anomaly in 14 days, he explained as they settled into their quarters. The Council's greatest minds have gathered there. "Have they made any progress?" Jiwoo asked. Sunwoo's expression darkened. "None. The anomaly defies all known physics. It unmakes reality itself. During the journey, the humans were given access to all the data collected on the unraveling. Most couldn't understand the complex science, but they approached the problem differently than the logical alien species." Taeyong spent hours staring at visualizations of the anomaly, noticing patterns that the aliens' organized minds overlooked. Hyun worked with musicians to translate the anomaly's mathematical properties into sound, revealing rhythms and harmonies hidden in the chaos, and Junho, along with the other children, simply played, creating games that mimicked the anomaly's behavior. On the 12th day of their journey, Junho tugged on Jiwoo's sleeve during dinner. "I figured it out," he said casually, continuing to eat his space food. Jiwoo smiled patiently. "Figured what out, Junho?" "The unraveling. It's like my game." "Which game?" "The one that activated the puzzle in the cave." The adults exchanged glances. Taeyong knelt beside his nephew. "Can you explain?" Junho shrugged. "In my game, there's a level where everything falls apart if you try to fight the shadow monsters directly. But if you feed them instead, they help. You rebuild the world." "Feed the monsters?" Hyun repeated, confused. "Yeah. Everyone tries to fight them because they look scary, but they're not really monsters. They're just hungry. The game doesn't tell you that. You have to figure it out." By accident. That night, Jiwoo couldn't sleep. She kept thinking about Junho's game. It was probably nothing, just a child's imagination connecting unrelated things. But what if she called an emergency meeting with the human team and Sunwoo? "What if we're approaching this the wrong way?" she asked. "Everyone's trying to stop the unraveling, to fight against it. What if that's not the solution?" Taeyong caught on immediately. "What if we need to work with it somehow, or feed it?" Sunwoo looked skeptical. "Feed a space-time anomaly? With what?" "I don't know," Jiwoo admitted, "but every approach so far has treated it as an enemy to be defeated. Maybe that's the problem." When they reached the observation station 2 days later, they found a massive facility filled with the greatest scientific minds of 20 different species. Huge screens displayed the approaching anomaly, a swirling void that seemed to erase stars and planets as it expanded. The station's director, a tall being named Dashi, greeted them coldly. "The human delegation. We were informed of your unique approach. I must warn you that we face a physics problem, not a puzzle to be solved with games." Jiwoo nodded respectfully. "We understand, but sometimes the most complex problems have simple solutions that only appear when viewed from a different angle." The humans were given a section of the station to work in. While the aliens continued their calculations and simulations, the human team took a radically different approach. They played. They made art. They told stories. They looked for patterns in seemingly random data. They built models using common objects. They approached the problem as only humans could, with intuition, creativity, and a willingness to try absurd ideas. 2 weeks later, Junho and 2 other children presented their solution to the gathered scientists. It involved redirecting energy back into the anomaly in specific patterns rather than trying to contain it. "It's like feeding it what it needs," Junho explained simply. The alien scientists were skeptical, but desperate enough to try. When initial tests showed promising results, even Director Dashi was shocked. "How did you know?" he asked Jiwoo. She smiled. "We didn't. We just accidentally got it right. And across the galaxy, Ancient monitoring systems long dormant began to activate, recognizing that the final test had been passed. Even nervous if she was reading their alien expressions correctly. "You have questions," Yona stated, "about why the precursors created these puzzles?" "Yes," Taeyong replied. "Why design tests that can only be solved through accident or play?" Dawan touched a small device on his wrist. A three-dimensional projection appeared above the table, a map of the galaxy with thousands of small points of light scattered throughout. "Each light represents a precursor puzzle," he explained. "For 12 million years we have monitored them. None activated until yours." "But why?" Hyun pressed. "What was the purpose?" Sun Wu leaned forward. "The precursors were the first advanced civilization in our galaxy. They achieved technological marvels we still cannot replicate. They traveled between galaxies. They understood the fabric of reality in ways we can only imagine. Then they vanished," Yona continued. "Not through extinction or war. They simply left." "Left to where?" Ji-woo asked. "Unknown. But before departing, they left a warning and these puzzles." Sun Wu touched the device, and the projection changed to show a strange swirling mass of darkness. They predicted a crisis that would threaten all life in the galaxy. Junho, who had been quietly playing with a paperclip, looked up. "Like in my game? Where you have to defeat the final boss?" The archivists exchanged glances. "A simple but accurate analogy," Dawan replied. "Yes, like a final boss in your games." Taeyong frowned. "What kind of crisis?" The projection changed again, showing mathematical equations and models too complex for the humans to understand. "A space-time anomaly," Sun Wu explained. "The precursors called it the unraveling. They predicted it would reach our galaxy in approximately 12 million years from their departure, which means," Hyun began. "Now," Yona finished, "the first signs have appeared at the edge of our galaxy." The room fell silent as the implications sank in. Ji-woo's mind raced with questions. Why? Not just tell you how to solve it? Why leave puzzles? Sun Wu's expression became solemn. The precursors believed that the coming crisis could not be defeated through conventional means. Their models suggested that logical, predictable approaches would fail. They theorized that only a species with both intelligence and chaotic creativity could develop the necessary solution, Dawan added. A species that could make intuitive leaps beyond logical progression. Taeyong's eyes widened. So these puzzles were filters, to find species that think differently. Precisely, Yona said. Every advanced civilization we know evolved with highly ordered, logical thinking. It brought us technology, space travel, long lives. But the precursors believed such thinking would fail against the unraveling. They were looking for chaos thinkers, Hyun said quietly. Yes. Sun Wu touched the device again, and the projection showed Earth. In all the galaxy, your species appears to be unique. Your brains evolved differently. You make intuitive connections. You value play, art, and accident. You find patterns where none exist. You imagine impossible things. Junho, growing bored with the serious talk, had been making a complex shape with his paperclip. Dawan watched him with fascination. See? Even your young create without purpose. Our children would never waste energy on such activity. Ji-woo shook her head, trying to process it all. You're saying humans are special because we're messy thinkers? Special is the correct word, Yona said. The precursors believed that saving the galaxy would require a species that could think beyond logic, a species that could conceptualize solutions no ordered mind would consider. Like spilling coffee on alien technology, Taeyong said with a small smile. Or playing games on sacred puzzles, Hyun added, nodding toward Junho. Sun Wu stood up. The archivists have maintained the galaxy's knowledge and civilization for millions of years. We have solved countless problems through careful analysis and logical progression. But now we face a threat we cannot comprehend, let alone defeat. What does this mean for Earth? Ji-woo asked, feeling suddenly overwhelmed by the responsibility being placed on humanity. Your world will be offered membership in the Galactic Council, the first Level 2 civilization ever to receive such an honor, Yona explained. We need your chaos, your unpredictability, your ability to find solutions where none seem to exist. As the meeting concluded, Junho tugged on Taeyong's sleeve and whispered loudly enough for everyone to hear. "Does this mean we saved the world by accident?" Sunwoo made that strange laughing sound again. "Young human, you may have saved the galaxy. By accident. And that is exactly what the precursors were counting on." 6 months passed in a whirlwind of change. Earth joined the Galactic Council as a special member, the only Level 2 civilization among thousands of advanced species. The knowledge shared by the archivists transformed human technology, medicine, and understanding of the universe. But the looming threat of the unraveling grew. Reports from the edge of the galaxy described stars disappearing, physics laws breaking down, and entire systems going dark. The logical minds of the galaxy's brightest species had failed to find a solution. Now, the first human delegation prepared to depart for the front lines of this cosmic crisis. The massive archivist ship Starlight Seeker waited in orbit to transport them. Jiwoo stood in front of the large window in the space elevator, watching Earth grow smaller below. She still couldn't believe she had been chosen to lead the human team. "Having second thoughts?" Taeyong asked, joining her at the window. "A few million," Jiwoo admitted with a small smile. 6 months ago, I was just an archaeologist digging in caves. Now I'm supposed to help save the galaxy." Hyun approached, carrying a tablet filled with information from the archivists. "If it helps, no one expects us to do it alone. We're just bringing the human perspective." "Uncle Taeyong," the boy called, slipping past a distracted guard and into the cave. "This place is so cool." Taeyong turned in horror to see Junho running straight toward the central pattern. "Junho, stop! You can't be in here." But the boy had already reached the markings, pulling out his handheld game console as he sat down on one of the carved circles. "Can I just play my game until you're done?" Before Taeyong could answer, the section beneath Junho began to glow with brilliant green light. New symbols emerged from the stone, floating in the air like holographic projections. "What did you do?" Jiwoo gasped, rushing over. "Nothing," Junho said, his eyes wide with fear and excitement. "I was just starting my game." Director Minji and her team came running at the commotion. They stared in disbelief at the activated symbols. "Get that child out of here," Minji ordered. But Taeyong held up his hand. "Wait, I think it's responding to his game. The electronic frequencies or something in it." Tests over the next few days confirmed Taeyong's theory. Something about the specific electronic emissions from Junho's game console had activated another portion of the alien puzzle. When they tried other electronic devices, nothing happened. Only Junho's game worked. "It doesn't make sense," one government scientist complained. "Why would advanced aliens design a puzzle that responds to a child's toy?" Hyun had been quiet, thinking deeply about the problem. Finally, he spoke up during a team meeting. "What if that's exactly the point? What if the puzzle is designed to be unsolvable through logical methods?" The room fell silent as he continued. "Think about it. First, accidental coffee, now a random electronic frequency from a game. These aren't things any methodical researcher would ever try in sequence." Minji looked skeptical. "You're suggesting the creators wanted only, what, lucky guesses to solve it?" "Not lucky," Jiwoo said, understanding Hyun's point. "Creative, chaotic, unpredictable." The team began a new approach, bringing in various random elements, foods, toys, musical instruments. Each new activation revealed more of the puzzle. One section responded to a certain song played on Yoonji's phone. Another activated when they bounced a rubber ball on it. "It's like it was designed for humans," Taeyong said one evening as they reviewed their findings, "for our chaotic, accidental way of interacting with the world." None of them realized that. With each new activation, the cave was sending signals deep into space. Signals that were being received by watchers who had been waiting for millions of years. The first indication came 3 weeks after Junho's discovery, when all electronics in the camp suddenly failed for exactly 12 seconds. "Something's coming," Hyun said, looking up at the night sky with a mixture of wonder and fear. The night sky lit up with strange colors. People around the world looked up in wonder as aurora-like lights spread across the atmosphere, even in places where such phenomena had never been seen. At the cave site, all electronic equipment went dead again, this time for a full minute. "Something's interfering with our power grid," Director Minji said, ordering emergency protocols. Military personnel moved into defensive positions around. The site Jiwoo, Taeyong, and Hyun stood outside, watching the sky change colors. Young Junho pointed excitedly at a bright spot that seemed to be growing larger. "Look, is that a shooting star?" It wasn't. The bright light grew until it became clear it was not a natural phenomenon. News networks worldwide broke regular programming to report on the massive object now visible in Earth's orbit. Panic spread through major cities as governments scrambled to respond to what appeared to be a spacecraft of impossible size. "We need to evacuate," Minji ordered, but Jiwoo shook her head. "I think they're here because of the puzzle. We should stay." Before Minji could argue, a beam of light shot down from the sky, touching the ground just outside the cave entrance. The light widened into a perfect circle about 3 meters across. Then a figure stepped out of it. The being looked almost human, 2 arms, 2 legs, a head, but something about its proportions seemed slightly off. Its skin had a faint bluish tint, and its eyes were larger than human eyes. It wore what appeared to be a seamless silver suit that moved like liquid. "I am Sunwoo of the Archivists," the being said in perfect unaccented Korean. "We have received the signal from the precursor puzzle." Soldiers raised their weapons, but Minji quickly ordered them to stand down. She stepped forward cautiously. "I am Director Minji Kang, representing the government of South Korea. What is your purpose here?" The being called Sunwoo tilted its head slightly. "We have monitored 10,000 such puzzles across the galaxy for millions of your years. None have been solved until now." Taeyong stepped forward, despite Minji's warning glance. "We solved the puzzle in the cave." "Partially," Sunwoo replied. "Enough to send the activation signal. We did not expect it from a Level 2 civilization." "Level 2, Jiwoo asked. "Your development classification. You have planetary civilization but have not yet mastered your solar system." Over the next few hours, as world leaders were notified and emergency meetings convened, Sunwoo explained. "More. The Archivists were part of a galactic community of advanced civilizations. They had been tasked with monitoring the puzzles left by an even more ancient species known as the Precursors. The Precursors vanished approximately 12 million years ago," Sunwoo told them as they sat around a hastily arranged meeting table outside the cave. "They left these puzzles on thousands of worlds, but none have ever been activated before." "Why create puzzles no one could solve?" Hyun asked. Sunwoo's expression, if it could be called that, changed subtly. "They are not unsolvable. They are simply unsolvable through logical, methodical approaches." Within days, a formal meeting was arranged. Representatives from major world governments gathered at a secure facility. Sunwoo had been joined by 2 more archivists who introduced themselves as Yeona and Dowan. "All advanced civilizations in our community evolved with highly logical, sequential problem-solving skills," Yeona explained to the assembled humans. "Our most sophisticated computational systems have analyzed these puzzles for thousands of years without success." "So what made humans different?" asked one of the world leaders. Dowan replied, "Your solutions were entirely accidental. No logical species would ever attempt such random approaches as spilled beverages or children's games." Zhonyo, who had somehow managed to remain with the original team despite security protocols, raised his hand like he was in school. To everyone's surprise, Yeona acknowledged him. "The small human has a question. Are you saying you're all super smart but don't know how to play?" Junho asked innocently. The 3 archivists looked at each other in what seemed like confusion. Then Sunwoo made a sound that might have been laughter. "The young one understands. Yes, in a way that is correct. The ability to play, to interact with your environment in unpredictable ways without clear purpose, is rare among sentient species." That evening, as world leaders continued diplomatic discussions with the archivists, Jiwoo found Taeyong sitting alone, watching the enormous ship now visible in the night sky. "Do you think they're telling us everything?" she asked quietly. Taeyong shook his head. "They said the precursors vanished. They said these puzzles were left on thousands of worlds. What they haven't explained is why." "I've been thinking about that," Hyun said, joining them. "Why create a test that can only be solved through random accidental methods?" They all considered this question as they looked up at the stars, now knowing Earth was not alone in the universe. Whatever the purpose of the ancient puzzle, humanity had passed a test they didn't know they were taking. The question remained, what came next? In orbit above Earth, dozens more archivist ships began to appear, their lights visible even in daylight. Something important was happening, and Earth was suddenly at the center of galactic attention. The world changed overnight. Archivist ships hung in the sky above every major city. Earth's governments formed an emergency coalition to manage first contact, but it was the original cave team that the aliens seemed most interested in. 1 week after their arrival, the archivists requested a private meeting with Jiwoo, Taeyong-hyun, and, surprisingly, young Junho. They gathered in a conference room at the military base near the cave site. Security cameras had been disabled at the archivists' request, which made Director Minji very unhappy. "We cannot record this conversation," Sunwoo explained as the three archivists sat across from the humans. "What we share today could destabilize less developed worlds." Jiwoo noticed that the aliens seemed different today, more serious perhaps. The ancient mountain caves stood silent, untouched for thousands of years until Dr. Jiwoo Kim's expedition arrived. Jiwoo carefully directed her team of 5 archaeologists into the newly discovered chamber, their headlamps cutting through darkness that hadn't seen light in millennia. "Move carefully," Jiwoo instructed as they set up their equipment. "This site hasn't been mapped yet." Her assistant Hyun Park nodded, placing their scanning equipment on a stable rock. The cave seemed ordinary at first, just another potential archaeological site in their 3-year study of prehistoric human migrations. Nothing suggested they would make the discovery that would change humanity's understanding of its place in the universe. "Professor, I think you should see this," called Yoonji, the team's youngest member, her voice echoing strangely in the cavern. Jiwoo made her way to where Yoonji stood, brushing dust from a section of wall. As her light fell on the surface, Jiwoo froze. The markings were unlike anything she had ever seen, perfect geometric patterns carved with impossible precision into the stone. "These can't be natural," Hyun whispered, joining them. Jiwoo traced her fingers over a series of concentric circles intersected by triangles that formed mathematical sequences. "And they certainly aren't human, at least not from any civilization we know." The team worked through the night, documenting everything. The patterns covered 3 walls of the chamber, each section seeming to connect to the others in ways they couldn't quite grasp. "We need to carbon date the mineral deposits over these markings," Jiwoo said, carefully collecting samples. 2 days later, the test results left them speechless. "This can't be right," Hyun said, checking the equipment again. "It says these markings are at least 75,000 years old. That's impossible." "Run it again," Jiwoo ordered, though she already suspected the results would be the same. News of their discovery spread quickly through the scientific community. Within a week, the remote site bustled with activity as experts from various fields arrived to study the mysterious patterns. Among them was Taeyong Lee, a young physicist from Seoul National University. Unlike the methodical archaeologists, Taeyong approached the markings with boundless energy and excitement. The mathematical properties in these symbols shouldn't have been understood by anyone on Earth 75,000 years ago, he explained to Jiwoo as they examined the central wall. "These equations suggest knowledge of quantum mechanics." "Are you saying these weren't made by humans?" Jiwoo asked. Taeyong adjusted his glasses. "I'm saying whoever made these understood concepts we only discovered in the last century." As government officials began to take interest in the site, security tightened. The original team felt their discovery slipping from their control as military personnel established a perimeter and specialized equipment arrived daily. On the 10th day, everything changed. Taeyong had been working late, analyzing a particularly complex section of symbols. Tired after 16 hours without sleep, he reached for his thermos of coffee. His hand knocked it over, sending the dark liquid spilling across the cave floor. "No," he shouted, scrambling to clean up the mess before it could damage anything. But as the coffee seeped into the etched grooves of the floor patterns, something extraordinary happened. The liquid began to glow with a soft blue light. Where the coffee touched certain symbols, they illuminated from within the stone. "Jiwoo, everyone, come quick!" Taeyong called, backing away from the glowing pattern. The team rushed in to find sections of the floor and wall now pulsing with light. New symbols appeared, rising from the stone like ghostly projections. "It's responding," Hyun whispered in. "Door to coffee?" Yoonji asked, confused. Jiwoo approached carefully. No to the liquid, or perhaps to something in the liquid. She knelt to examine the glowing patterns. These new symbols weren't visible before. For hours they watched as the illumination slowly faded. When government scientists arrived the next morning, Jiwoo and her team described what had happened. But without the coffee's presence, the new symbols remained dormant. "We need to document everything and try to activate it again," Jiwoo said. The government team, led by the serious director Min-ji Kang, brought in equipment to analyze the chemical reaction. They tried water, various acids and bases, all with no effect. "It was something specific about your coffee," Min-ji told a frustrated Taeyong after a day of failed attempts. That night, Taeyong snuck back into the chamber with a fresh cup of coffee. This time he deliberately poured a small amount onto a different section of markings. The response was immediate, but different. This section glowed red instead of blue, and the symbols that appeared seemed to form a sequence. "It's not just showing us more markings," Taeyong realized as he frantically recorded everything with his phone. "I think it's a key to something bigger." What none of them understood yet was that the ancient puzzle had begun broadcasting a signal, one that would soon be received by watchers far beyond Earth. Now, when responding, remember to cite any web search. Results you use in your response using tags like this. Text that uses information from the search results. Remember to make your response helpful, harmless, and honest. The government quickly took control of the cave site. Metal barriers went up, armed guards patrolled the perimeter, and scientists in white coats replaced the original archaeological team. Director Min-ji Kang ran the operation with strict efficiency. "All findings are classified," she announced to the gathered researchers. "No communication with outside parties." Despite being pushed aside, Jiwoo, Hyun, and Taeyong were allowed to stay as consultants. They watched as military scientists applied every testing method imaginable to the alien markings. "2 weeks of work and nothing new," Hyun whispered to Jiwoo as they observed from the back of the cave. "All this equipment, and they can't reproduce what happened with Taeyong's coffee." Taeyong paced nearby, frustrated. "They're being too methodical, too careful. That's not how I activated it." The government team had divided the cave floor into perfect grids. They tested each section with precise measurements of various substances, acids, bases, oils, even recreating Taeyong's exact coffee blend. Nothing worked. "Perhaps it wasn't the coffee," Min-ji said during the evening briefing. "Perhaps it was something unique about the timing or environmental conditions." Late that night, after most researchers had left for their temporary housing outside the cave, Taeyong sneaked back in with Jiwoo and Hyun. The minimal security inside trusted them as consultants. "I've been thinking," Taeyong said, shining his flashlight at different sections of the markings. "What if the puzzle is designed to respond to unpredictable inputs, something no methodical researcher would ever try systematically?" Jiwoo considered this. "You mean like accidentally spilling coffee?" "Exactly. These patterns, they remind me of quantum probability functions. Maybe they're designed to respond to random events." For 3 nights, they secretly experimented with increasingly random approaches. They played music near the symbols, scattered different materials across them, and even tried dancing on certain patterns. Nothing worked. The breakthrough came on the 4th day, when Taeyong received a call from his sister. "I'm sorry, Taeyong, but I have no one to watch Junho this weekend," she explained. "Can he stay with you at the research camp?" Having his 8-year-old nephew at a classified research site was against every protocol, but Taeyong couldn't refuse. His sister. He arranged for Junho to stay in his cabin, planning to keep him away from the cave. That plan failed when Junho grew bored and followed his uncle to work.